And we're live. Hey guys, Engineer Wannabe here with my friends. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, we're gonna have some fun tonight. So stick around. We have Sam from Sands of Time. We have Watch Medicine or Bobby. Good to see you, Bobby. And we have Keith. Uh, let's go ahead and start with. But let's start with a watch fact. I don't know if you have another watch fact, Bobby, but um, I was gonna start with a watch fact while people filter in. Did you know that the reason why the hands are at 10 and 2 or at 1 and 50 is because it's a positive message? It looks like a smiley face.
I didn't
At
know
least
that.
that's what I'm told.
Didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Didn't know
that's
that either.
it's the lame watch fact of the day. All right, Bobby got anything? Sam got anything?
I think there was one on like I was just looking at some like dive watch article from like, a couple of years ago from Hodinkee. I think like Doxa used to have that orange dial because orange used to be like I think initially was like the least like the best color to see underwater. But I guess that's kind of like a myth right now because like after like 10 to 20 meters, everything becomes gray.
Right.
The best dial nowadays should be the best dial should be like the contrast between the dial and the hands. So
Right.
a black dial and a white hand is the best dive watch, I guess, and orange
Yeah.
is not. I guess that's a myth now.
Yeah. No, I've heard that everything kind of turns a shade of gray at a certain depth. So yeah, I didn't know that either. That's good to know. All right, so let's go ahead with our wristwatch checks. We'll start with Bobby, our special guest. What are you
Oh,
wearing today?
so in honor of the hosts, I present before thee a Grand Seiko. Um, so it's a Grand Seiko. I don't know if you can see it on like this thing. It's a Grand Seiko SPGA 413. It's the Four Seasons spring collection.
Beautiful.
So like its cousin, the Snowflake. It's a titanium bracelet. It's a
Yeah,
great watch to wear. I just love it.
yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk about the new GMT Four Seasons too. So I think it's fitting that you wore that. I did guess you would wear that. So
It's Grand Seiko themed, right?
so Keith, what are you wearing today?
I'm wearing my Lore Neptune, what I've deemed my weekend watch lately.
Yeah, that's I keep forgetting that's a Series 3.
Yeah, Series 3 with the Miyota movement.
Right. Very nice.
Is that Keith? Is that how water resistant is that? Looks pretty water
It's
resistant.
200
200.
meters.
Okay. It looks like
Yeah, I noticed with the Miyota movement, it's hard to, like, you can't just shake it to get it started. You got to really turn the crown or really shake it for a long time. I don't know if it's just me.
Wow.
Maybe it is just me. I don't know.
And Sam, what are you wearing today?
Yeah. So today I'm wearing a Yamaha Rally Graph.
Oh, okay.
So
Very nice.
this is a watch I purchased. It was kind of like I really wanted a watch to purchase at the time, and I didn't
Yeah.
have the funds. So I actually purchased this, and I've actually been loving it. It has that unique subdials, 1960s racing heritage to it. It has genuine heritage. So I like it, and it's paired on a Marine National it's like a Time and Tide, if you know Time and Tide. This is like a club strap. So that's what I'm wearing today.
Very cool.
is that orange? Is that orange and black or
Yeah, that's actually orange and black.
that looks cool?
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Nice. Seems to go well with the watch.
Yeah, thanks.
What drew you to Yema? I've always wondered. I meant to ask. Yeah.
So at first I was very skeptical with Yamaha because I was like reading the forums, what you seek, and I think it was just like looking at the mechanical movements and the Yamaha in-house caliber. There'd be some wide inaccuracy in the movement, so you'd have plus 30 seconds a day sometimes.
Right.
So what happened was I was more interested in going for a quartz or a mecha quartz offering from Yamaha. I know your chances of messing up with that is very low. But apart from that, what drew me to Yamaha was just the rate, like the heritage behind it. I used to own a Dan Henry as well, which I had sold back in the day. And when I saw this watch compared to Dan Henry's offering, this is made in France. It has that unique racing heritage. If you look at the subdials, they're like the dashboards. I really wanted a panda style chronograph, and that's what drew me to Yamaha. And this is a watch I've been wearing quite a lot, actually. I quite like it,
Right.
and it's fairly affordable.
Yeah, very good. Well, I am wearing the much loved Tudor Royal today.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
This is the blue dial 38 millimeter.
Every
Roman
single
numeral?
person loves that watch.
Yeah, universally acclaimed. Yeah, it's not really, but hey, I like it, so
Yeah.
that matters. That's what matters. All right, so dipping into the chat real quick, we've got Peter. Good to see you, Peter. We have Acclaim. It's his first time on a live stream. Well, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. We've got Joseph. Good to see you, Joseph. James Duffy. Good to see you, man. And Matthew Davis. Good to see you as well. And I think Peter said, looking at the topic, I'm interested in your thoughts. And he also said that he didn't know that. Oh, right. He's talking about the fun fact, the lame fun fact. And Peter says, Bobby, watch the You're Terrific YouTube channel. He seems to prove that orange is the best.
That's a great channel.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is. Kyle's here too. Good to see you, Kyle. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, and let us know what you're wearing. It'd be good to know. Tell us what you're wearing tonight. Hey, Eric's here too, and he says Yamaha's digital offerings are ugly. Huh. Strong opinion. I think I've seen them. They kind of look like the Hamilton Pulsar Pulsar watch, but yeah, I don't really have many thoughts about it. I haven't seen it in person. But Yamaha did. I've been kind of keeping Yamaha at arm's length because I've heard some sketchy stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I asked Sam what drew him to Yamaha, because like he mentioned in what you seek and some forums and
Yeah.
and even in some of the Clubhouse chats, I've heard some things that aren't the most flattering. But yeah, we'll probably talk about that later, maybe. Let's get into the topic of the day: how to define what watch is better between two watches. I was thinking about this when I was watching one of Mr. The producer guy, the producer Michael. He had a conversation with the guy from the Watches TV and Jacob from Jacob and Co. And they had like this really very opulent conversation. And I'll bring it up tomorrow as well. We're going to be doing the Watch Soup thing in the Bobby Legs YouTube channel. But they were talking about what makes a watch good. And I was thinking, well, let's kind of spin that a little and say, how do we say one watch is better than another? And so that got my gears turning. And I guess I came to the conclusion that it was more of a philosophical question, because in the end, one watch that is great for me is not going to be great for someone else. And so everyone is going to have their perfect watch, or a couple of perfect watches, or a couple of really good watches for them, which would be completely irrelevant to someone else. Like, for example, for me, I work in an office. I tend to wear dressy watches. I really like dressy watches, and so dressy watches gain a lot of points. Water resistance doesn't really matter to me. All that comes down, and yeah. So to me, a Submariner having 200 meters water resistance, or even 100 meters water resistance, is not that important. So I wouldn't lose a lot of points when it comes to water resistance. And if a watch is dressy and a bit delicate, it's not ideal, but it doesn't lose as many points for me personally. Whereas for someone else who might be, working with their hands, that's kind of a bigger problem. And I used to work with my hands. I used to be a car detailer and a couple of other laborious jobs. I used to work in tile as well, and if I were in those jobs, there's no way I'd wear a Grand Seiko SPGY 003, or even Bobby's watch, the SPGA 413. It was beautiful, beautiful piece. Would hate to get a bunch of tile dust on it, or uh, compromise its gaskets and stuff like that. Even though it is a sports watch, but I was thinking there are ways that we could define for each other what watch would be the best out of a selection. So we would be able to maybe define a better watch over another watch. And I was thinking, in basically these come down to the everyday metrics of a watch, like movement type, movement caliber, complication, case material, glass material, water resistance, the size of the watch, the weight of the watch, the watch band, whether it's metal band or synthetic cloth fabric or leather. All those things kind of knock out everything that might be worse for that individual. Um, but in the end, one would be able to, if we're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, say a Rolex Submariner versus an Omega Seamaster. Well, I think we would be able to come to a good conclusion which watch is better, not necessarily based on something subjective, but based on something objective. But that all goes out the window when we start comparing, say, a Grand Seiko Snowflake to a Rolex Submariner. They're kind of incompatible, and because of that, people's biases take over, and it becomes more difficult and more subjective and more philosophical to define what is the better watch. One person might think Spring Drive is amazing, while another person might think it's trash because it's got a quartz crystal in it and it's got no soul. The cliche. So those were my thoughts, and I was thinking maybe we can play a little game a little later on. But I was wondering what you guys thought about how would one define a better watch for oneself or in general. Let me ask Bobby. What do you think? Do you have any pressing thoughts?
Well, like you were saying, Sanjay, I think it's all philosophical or subjective, so to speak. There's no objective measurement of saying like one watch is better than another unanimously. I think I wish it was like a sports game, like Rolex Submariner versus Seamaster, who wins? Like put them in the field and let them duke it out. But unfortunately, it's all these are inanimate objects, and what our perception is kind of like art. Like which is a better painting? I don't know. Like it depends on what you like. Do you like bright colors? Do you like oil painting versus canvas? Similarly, I think in watches, some people like good bracelets. Some people like good dials. Personally speaking, I think I'm more of a person who likes the color of the dial texture. That's the first thing I'm drawn to when I see a watch, and not the movement or the water resistance or anything like that. So I think but there are certain scenarios in which I feel like there are better versions of the same brand. Like the one thing that pops up to me is the Tudor Black Bay 58 that came out after the Black Bay initial one. The initial Black Bay Edda, I had initially owned that watch, and I don't know if anybody's handled it. It's like a 41 millimeter watch, which is pretty okay size, but it's the thickness of the watch. It was like 15 millimeters thick, and it was the side of the case was like not even like finished well. Like it was just a slab of metal, like a big wall was on your wrist, and it just felt like it wasn't being utilized that well, that part, and it just felt top heavy in my experience. So I think when the Black Bay 58 came out, which was 39 millimeters, I think it's 39 millimeters,
Yeah.
but much thinner, 11-ish millimeters thinner. It was much well proportioned. I think in that aspect, at least personally for me, I think a well proportioned, a thinner case with the less of a slab of metal on the side of the case, at least aesthetically speaking, was much better watch than the previous predecessor. And I think the market's also shown that the Black Bay 58 has been much more of a hit amongst watch enthusiasts for the most part. Again, I can't generally speak, but I think that's where I'm at. And another thing that when I look at for is when I buy a watch or look at a watch is my personal collection is color themed. So irrespective of the price, I should probably state that watch price does not technically mean that it's a better watch. I think the best color dial or best dial is what I look for. And for example, I just have another watch here, but the orange dial watch, I was looking for an orange dial watch. I was speaking orange just a little earlier, and I think the first thing that was popping to mind, which is the best orange colored dial watch out there? And I thought, there's the Seiko Monster, there's the Seiko Prospects. Audemars Piguet has one, which is a diver, Royal Oak Offshore Diver, which is an orange bezel. But what I came up to was the Doxa, which is more iconic. It has the best orange dial, in my opinion. And I think, I just felt like of all the brands, of all things, the best orange dial, in my opinion, was the Doxa. So that's why I went with. So for me, it's just a dial, dial color, and the proportion of the case, and that's where I go lean towards what a better watch is.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Keith? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I never try and be objective. I think it's all subject, like Bobby was saying. Like when I first see a watch, if it catches my eye, which is usually also, like Bobby said, maybe the dial, then the next thing I think right away is how big is it? Which is, if you're being subjective, the size of the watch doesn't matter. Different people wear different sizes, but for someone with a super small wrist, that's a big deal. Most watches won't fit me. So that's immediately where I go to. Second, or third or whatever, is what's the price? Am I willing to pay that price? And then if it passes those three tests, then I'll look at the movement and the materials it's made out of and all that stuff. I feel like I'm not a real watch enthusiast because I just go, oh, which one's pretty? And then which one can I afford? But that's what goes through my head when I look at watches. So when you look at the Submariner versus the Seamaster, like you said, to me, especially the white dial Seamaster, that's so much better looking than the Submariner. For me, that's why it wins. So it's tough to be subjective.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, objective for me, and I don't even know if that's possible.
And Keith, when you were saying about size, was that because, is it just the case size and the case thickness, or just the case diameter?
I mostly go for the diameter. I recently picked up an Oris Aquis, which is known for being a thick watch, especially for the diameter. So I'm going to see over time how I feel about that. It's certainly heavier than I'm used to, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I always look at diameter first. I know some watches wear smaller. Like I wouldn't have a problem getting a 41 millimeter Orient Kamasu because that wears smaller. But I don't think, especially with Seiko, I don't think I could do, even though they wear small, like the 42, 44 millimeters, like Sanjay's able to pull off. But yeah, first I look at the diameter for sure.
Yeah, you can pull it off. I think your wrist is bigger than mine, isn't it?
No, mine's 6 1/4.
Oh, okay. So same
if
size.
that, where I actually wear the watch. So
yeah, I guess I'm a bit more used to a bigger watch, but I'm certain you can pull off the Marine Master 200, like the new one, the reduced. You should be able to pull that off.
How big's that watch?
42.
42.
But
yeah.
it's got a like a aggressive curve down at the lugs. So even though the end link is a T shape, so even the end link, it sticks out further, but it's such an aggressive downturn that it goes around your wrist without looking awkward. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, because I was even afraid of I think it's SPBs, the 40.5 millimeter.
Right.
Because those have the T end links too that stick out. I'm like,
yeah,
I'd have to try it on. I can't risk that just buying it online.
Those wear less comfortably because they kind of have blocky lugs.
Okay.
So they kind of stretch a bit, but it's still manageable. But they do kind of stretch out a little bit further. Sam, what do you think? What are your thoughts about how to pick a better watch?
Yeah, so my views align with you guys as well. Obviously, it's subjective to what you need, and we were discussing what watch would you go for, a Seamaster 300 or a Rolex Submariner? And we're looking at this as a design standpoint, but there may be people that are also looking at purchasing a dive watch, for a functional standpoint, whether it be just for the aesthetics or the touristic nature. Like one, I would personally, if I was a proper diver, I'd probably look towards getting something like a Seiko Marine Master tuner, where when you're dealing with that unique case, I don't need to go out of the beach and start cleaning my watch, washing it in like run it through some tap water, or even something like a Zin U1, something from Zin. But it's obviously subjective. Some people completely dislike the look of this the Zin U1. It's too tooly. It's in another spectrum. I'm also wearing wearing my Doxa as well.
Nice.
So Doxa Brothers, I went for the yellow, and it's all subjective. Depending on your financial state, what you can wear. There are people out there that really like, let's say for yellow dial watches, I was mainly looking at Breitling Avenger and the next thing was Doxa. I liked the Breitling Avenger because it was prominent with Gordon Ramsay. He wore a Breitling chronograph that was a yellow dial, and I was really motivated by that. And I didn't have the price for an Avenger, and I really liked owning a Doxa. And I was like, hey, I might as well get the best yellow dial watch there is in Doxa. So that's kind of my view. It's all subjective and based on the user's needs.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up. Sorry, I see Clayton's on here from the Watchdog podcast, and he recently had an episode with Bobby Legs about Damasco, and there's so much cool tech about Damasco with the scratch resistance and the pushers that wear down less. And I've seen Mark from Long Line Watch talk about how they upgraded the movement so it doesn't wear out as much when you're turning the crown. So it has all this cool tech, but then I go on their website and there's no design that appeals to me. So I think you could, almost objectively say the Damasco watches, are so, especially for the what you're paying, are so much of an upgrade from all these other watches. But if there's no design that appeals to me, it doesn't really make a difference.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think I completely agree with you, Keith. I think it's so toolish that it becomes a sterile design.
Right.
And
Exactly.
kind of turns me off a little bit too. And that's some of the watch brands are like that. I'm not, for me personally speaking. And Sam, which Doxa is that? Like, I love that yellow color. What is this? Is that 300, 1500, or a Sea Rambler?
That's the 300T. Yeah.
So we basically have the same different color variation. I have 300 too. So
nice. That's
nice.
Yeah.
Well, popping in the chat real quick to see everyone's wrist check. Peter is wearing the SARP 33. Kyle's wearing the Subby. Joseph is wearing a Gilt Seiko 5 Solid Boy. I'm not sure what that is. Sounds interesting. SBDC 087. It sounds familiar. I can't really remember what that is. But
someone finally stumped you with a Seiko reference number.
Well, it's the Japanese reference.
Tooth,
okay.
It's the shark tooth, sorry?
Black Alpinist.
Okay. Very cool. James is wearing the Armatron Griffey Yamaha Retro Digital for only $40. Oh, very interesting. Who else? Matthew wearing a Poor Man's Suit Royal Tissot PRX. Don't call it that, Matthew.
Yeah, it's a cool looking watch.
Yeah, it's a cool watch. I think he was poking fun at me. Kyle had the SARP 35. All right. That's a lot of stuff going on here in the chat. Cannon's here. Good to see you, Cannon. Thanks for joining us. Okay, let's continue. Kevin's here too. Hey, Kevin. Thanks for joining us. Don't fear the Seikos. Okay. So what we were talking about. Jonathan's here too. Just wanted to shout him out. Thanks, Jonathan. All right. So I was thinking in a sense, yeah, I do agree with you. But I think we can break it down to the point where we can look at uh, the solid facts, or the tangibles, and then break down the intangibles in a watch, a certain watch. So like kind of like what Keith was talking about, except backwards. So looking at the movement first, and the case material, the crystal, what kind of crystals on it, um, what kind of complication is there, and breaking it down in that way, and then making a separate column for the intangibles, like say the brand value, Rolex versus Omega brand cachet, and then there is the aesthetics. That would be a subjective section. Um, what else? The size almost is a subjective thing. It's kind of a gray area, I think, when it comes to size, thickness, weight. So I think if we can split those apart, we'd be able to, in a way, boil down what might be a better watch. And as you can tell, we can easily pick out something that is way different, in completely different price categories, but the one with the lesser price category could easily trump the one with the higher price category, and it kind of becomes like a sports stats arena, or top trumps kind of, because we'll have like the case material. Okay, we got titanium versus ceramic versus steel, 904 steel versus 316L steel, and we can kind of boil it down, and that's kind of what I was meaning with, say, the Omega Seamaster versus the Rolex Submariner, because you can actually break it down to the sheer data, and then you can look at the intangibles, the subjective parts, and then mesh it together and come up with which watch might be better. And of course, it's going to fall apart with the intangible section. But I was thinking, like with the Omega Seamaster versus Rolex Submariner, if we were to run through the list, we've got movement. We've got a coaxial 8800, I think, on the Seamaster 300 versus Rolex's movement, their upgraded movement that they just put in. Can't remember the reference number. With the what the blued hairspring that is anti-magnetic versus a silicon hairspring. But the funny thing is that even at that point, we come to a controversy where one could say, hey, silicon is not better. It may be amagnetic, but 25 years down the line, the Rolex's hairspring can be repaired. The silicon one is going to disintegrate. You're going to have to replace it. And it gets into like this whole subjective thing again. So it's a bit of a thorny pathway to walk on, but I think we can come to a fairly decent conclusion over, say, the Rolex Submariner and the Omega Seamaster 300. Maybe we can discuss through it, and then we'll move on to another topic. So I'll put it out to you guys. The case material, 904L steel versus 316L steel. Which would you pick?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the differences, to be honest with you.
904L is just slightly corrosion resistance.
Yeah. 904L is known to be slightly softer. So it can be polished to a higher luster. It looks a bit more bright and brilliant, but it is softer. But then at the same time, it has better corrosion resistance compared to 316L steel, which is more prone to corrosion, even though it is pretty resistant to corrosion as well.
Yeah, I wonder if you'd ever even notice the corrosion, even if you kept it for 40 years or something. Are you going to be able to see it?
Eventually, yes. Like in vintage watches, if they have not been taken care of, you can definitely see corrosion. Say in a couple of Grand and King Seikos, if you pop out the bezel to look under, it's like the crystal is held together by the bezel in a lot of them. And when you pop out the bezel to take the crystal out, you'll see that the bezel material is corroded. So that's one example where I've noticed like it's completely rusted. where corrosion resistance is a good thing. But yeah, I'll start and I'll say I'd pick 316L, mainly for slightly better scratch resistance, and if you're taking care of your watch, corrosion resistance is a non-issue. Um, and
And just to be clear, the Omega has that one, right?
yeah, the Omega has the 316L. Rolex has their 904L, which is semi-proprietary. They forge it, and they come up with that metal. Even though Ball seems to have that metal available as well. So I would go and I would pick the 316L steel, mainly because it is a bit more hard wearing. It's a harder metal. Sam, do you want to venture out to pick one?
Look, I don't pick 316L stainless steel because I don't expose the watch or treat it as, as harsh as one could. See, the Rolex has the 904L, but I'm pretty sure many Rolex owners are not going to, they're going to take really, really good care of their watches. So the battle between the steels is insignificant to me,
Right.
unless you're like, a proper diver. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. Keith, what say
Yeah,
you?
I'll take any kind of scratch resistance. I'll take it. Someone who's obsessive over scratches.
Yeah.
Bobby?
I think in this particular case, because you're talking about Seamaster like dive watches, if it was like GMT or like more dressy watches, I would have leaned towards the 904. But I think 316, especially scratch resistance, especially if you're using it as a daily beater or going to I think 316L is probably the better case material.
Yeah. So if I were to pose a hypothetical situation, which is not really hypothetical because there is a ceramic Seamaster, would you guys pick a ceramic cased Seamaster versus the 316L cased Seamaster? So ceramic is very hard, very scratch resistant, but prone to shattering if you give it a hard enough impact. Not easily prone to shattering, but because it's so hard, it will shatter. Similar to plexiglass crystal versus a sapphire crystal. Plexiglass will bow a little and absorb a shock, while a sapphire will just shatter if it hits it just right. Bobby, would you pick a ceramic or would you pick
You're
steel?
talking about the whole case being ceramic?
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean the ceramics is just the bezel, right, for the Seamaster.
Well, I think there is a Seamaster. Maybe I'm thinking of
No, you're right. There's one Omega that has a blackened Omega
Okay.
ceramic case.
Yeah.
And as a person who just recently have went like ceramic, and Keith might like this, you don't get any scratches.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
careful. The thing is, you don't have to. If you drop the watch, then it's going to be a problem. But if you don't drop the watch, even if you drop it if you're actually using it as a diver, you're going to drop it probably near the beach, so on sand, so it's probably less likely to cause shattering. So I think I would probably tend towards a ceramic.
Yeah.
And most likely we're using it for daily desk diving anyway, so it's
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the ceramic Seamaster. That specific one that's coming up looks a little boring to me.
Yeah.
But if I'm just looking at the case, yeah, I like the idea of scratch resistance. I don't know if it's just such a different look. I'd have to take some time to get used to it. But I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's half as heavy, so it's lighter on the wrist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So.
It is light. Let's yeah, Keith, you're not supposed to look at it.
Was it a blind watch test?
Yeah. Yeah. If I were to look
okay,
at
sorry.
that Seamaster, I wouldn't pick it either.
I missed that part.
But, yeah, no, I'm just messing with you. Just a aside, I didn't know the PRX had a linen dial. That would be cool. I was not expecting that. Kevin says that the linen dial is really nice on the PRX. That's cool to know. What about you, Sam? What do you think? Would you go with
So
ceramic?
you know, obviously, if we're talking about this watch in particular, which is the Omega reference, I probably wouldn't go ceramic because I know ceramic. It's an exotic material. But when I purchased my Seiko Total, it was actually my very first automatic watch. I had dropped it, and there was actually a massive dent on the case.
Mm.
And somehow the jewelers managed to buff it out, so it looks normal. So look, if if I'm going to potentially drop a watch because I already have dropped the watch, it's not like in the future I'm just never going to drop a watch. I don't want to shatter, $7,000 worth of watch.
Mhm.
I would gladly spend $2,000 on a ceramic watch, maybe from Rado. They're the masters of ceramic. They do some really funky stuff with ceramic as well. So, but I'm comfy with that. But when I'm looking at a tooly kind of diver like the Seamaster 300, I would probably just still go with the 316L stainless steel case.
Yeah,
I like stainless steel. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Completely understandable. I've been pretty interested with the Rado True Squares as well. Or yeah, they recently came up with a green dialed square. Um, really nice piece. I'm considering going over to my AD to look at one. Um, okay, so let's talk about the movement. Coaxial, amagnetic or anti-magnetic omega movement, beating at 25,200 beats per second. So that is 7 ticks a second versus Rolex's uh, something or other hairspringed movement. uh, I can't remember it. It's not Cerachrome. Cerachrome is their bezel material, right? Um, Bobby, you've had Rolexes.
Yeah,
Do you, was it Parachrome? Parachrome hairspring? So,
I think
something.
yeah, something like that. It's but that being said, I mean, I know is it a 3135? I mean, I think that was the old one. I think the new one
Yeah.
has a newer one. But that being said, I think the two major things I look into movement is both are okay, have great movements. Both are great. This thing is
Yeah.
power reserve. How much days do you get with the movement? I believe both are similar.
Yeah.
Now with the new Rolex movement, because Rolex was outdated, the old Submariner. But that being said, as a person who likes to travel too, I think the anti-magnetic and being near magnetic fields all the time, the more anti-magnetic. And the second thing is that is you can see the case back on the Omega Seamaster. You don't see anything. Rolex is just a plain case back. You don't see any movement. So
Yeah.
movement wise, I would probably give the edge to Omega as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even if
Same-
you could see the Rolex moving, it doesn't look as good as the Omega one.
It's not well jeweled and not well finished compared to that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very tool-tastic, very tooly finish versus actually some machined finishing on the Omega. Very nice arabesque finishing, I think is what they call it. Um, Sam, what do you say? What would you go
Yeah.
with?
In terms of sheer value, the Omega movement, yeah, completely outshines the Rolex one. Just the finishing on the movement. You see the nice movement. Like if you're looking for that one watch and done, you want to kind of have a lot of value. You want to be able to get to see a movement, have an amazing dial. It has everything. So yeah, Omega for the movement.
Yeah. And Keith?
I'll go Omega.
Yeah.
The prettier movement.
Yeah, see,
You could
it's kind of
see.
a thorny pathway that we're walking on because everything is like laden with subjective biases. It just pulls us no matter where we go, right? Yeah, I would pick the Omega as well, basically because of the great coaxial dual impulse. I think movement. It's really cool technology that reduces the need or eliminates the need for lubrication because the jewels are no longer rubbing on steel when the escapement is operating. I think they just bang it rather than sliding, and so it doesn't need lubrication. And so because of that, service intervals have been extended to 10 years. So very, very cool innovation there. I really like that. Um, and yeah, so
What
I would pick the Omega.
I
It
wonder
looks fun.
which one people have more problems with. Maybe it's even. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I,
I
I rarely have had issues with either. I mean, the Rolex moment, there's probably, I mean, you rarely get an issue with the, unless you dived with the crown open. The moment itself is rock solid.
Right, right.
And now Omega has been right now it's with a master coaxial, right? But the coaxial movement's been out for now like more than a decade, right? It's been 2003, I think. So 17 years. So there's been not much complaints, and Omega's fully embraced the coaxial for the future too. So
Yeah. I think when it first came out, there was a little bit of hiccups because of the beat rate. It was a bit too high, which is why they went down to 7 ticks per second from 8 ticks per second. So that was with the caliber 2500, I think. When they moved from 2500 C, maybe, there was a slight adjustment where they changed the beat rate, and that eliminated some of the issues they were having. I'm not too well versed on that, but yeah, that's what I heard happen. Okay, so um, let's talk about size. This is kind of subjective, but we have a 42 millimeter watch versus, say, the new one is a 41 millimeter watch. Um, this can be a pretty quick answer. Which one would you go with in this instance? 41 millimeters. I don't have the lug to lug off the top of my head. I know the Omega is 50 lug to lug, or pretty close to 50. The Rolex, I think, is a bit under 50. 49 maybe. Sam, what do you think? Which would you go with? Size,
So
purely
this
based
is
on size.
the 41 millimeter Submariner. Is this
Yeah,
what you're? I would still go with the 41 millimeter Submariner. I've
yeah,
watched some reviews of a comparison between old Submariner and new Submariner. Um, there is very little difference in lug to lug dimension. So in
right.
terms of wearability, yeah, Submariner.
Yeah. And Keith?
Yeah, and I think it is smaller. I think the lug to lug is smaller than 50. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
most likely the sub is going to wear better, especially the newer one. So I'd go with that one.
Yeah. And the sub is significantly thinner too than the Seamaster, which is quite thick. I think 13 and a half ish off the top of my head. Bobby?
um, compared to the previous Submariner was a maxi case. I don't know,
Right.
and now it's a little more slim, like slimmed down the lugs, like Keith was saying. So I think, and another thing which I don't like about the Omega Seamaster is the helium escape valve, which protrudes
Mhm.
from the case. So that's another millimeter probably out. So I definitely would lean towards the Rolex from the
Yeah.
size.
Yeah. I too, in this case, would be leaning towards the Rolex. So I guess if we put that mishmash of stuff together, we would come with just barely the Omega would be eking out the win here in terms of the better watch. But then we have to go in and look at the subjective portion of things. And like you mentioned, Bobby, the aesthetics of the watch is kind of not to everyone's liking. I know Keith likes the Omega because of the cool dial. The Panda dial is really nice, or the Panda colorway with the black ceramic and the white ceramic dial. But yeah, to me too, I think the previous gen Seamaster had a nicer helium escape valve because it was flat and cylindrical. And this one is conical, and it accentuates it even more, which makes it ugly to me. So I kind of hit a wall at that point when it comes to aesthetics. Um, and of course, the waves are not to my liking. I like the Rolex's clean, deep black glossy look. Um, or whatever colorway that comes with the Rolex. How about you, Sam? What do you think aesthetically?
Um,
Which would you pick?
Aesthetically, look, I've watched many reviews, where people are talking about why such and such is the best watch that one could get. Let's say Tudor Black Bay 58 or Rolex Submariner. So I actually tried on at a vintage watch shop. I believe it's a 39 millimeter GMT GMT Master 2. And after wearing it, I kind of realized that, this is probably one of the best wearing divers I've ever worn. Like, once I actually physically held the watch, I was, I was shocked about how good it was. I thought it was all hype with Rolex, but my edge still goes with the Rolex. That's if I can get it at retail, of course. Yeah, 100% with the
Yeah.
Rolex.
Keith, which one would you pick? I know you already mentioned.
Yeah, I'd go with the Omega.
Yeah.
Assuming trying. I think a big determining factor for me would be trying it on to see how each of them wears. But looks wise, I like Omega. Price wise, I like Omega. Availability wise, I like Omega. I mean, that's all outside of the watch. But yeah, that's what I'd go with.
And you, Bobby, which would you pick?
This is a big dilemma for me because my first luxury watch was like what Sanjay was saying, the old Seamaster, the pre-wave. I guess the plain black and plain blue dial was much more cleaner to me, the dial, so to speak. I loved that. I loved it. That was my first watch. The black one was beautiful. And I actually, I don't know if you remember the 90s, the Pierce Brosnan one with the smaller waves and the broad hands. I like the Rolex dial better compared to the current Omega Seamaster, for the exception of what Keith was saying. The white dial Omega Seamaster probably is the only Seamaster I might and would probably rival that of the current Rolex models. But just generally speaking, the Rolex dial is more keener in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you there. That's funny because the white dialed Seamaster is the one that where you can least see the waves.
Right. Which is a positive, yeah. For me.
Yeah. I am a fan of the glossy one as well. I think my first real Swiss luxury watch was the Omega Seamaster as well. The I got the midsize, so the 36mm one.
The
And,
Prince Royal.
Yes, yeah, that was the one that I got, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. But yeah, moved on from it. Canon asked what we thought about I think it's called Ever Brilliant Steel from Seiko. Have you guys had any experience with that? It was released last year. It's
I've heard of it, but they didn't really market it as well. Like, I know it's a little bit more corrosion resistance, but what exactly is Everbrilliant Steel? Is it extra coating onto the watch case? Is it a different material? That's the one question I didn't get answered before that.
Yeah, it's actually a different alloy of steel, so it is more corrosion resistant, and in this case, unlike 904L steel, it's actually harder as well. So it's more resistant to scratches than 316L, and on top of that, it has a shinier luster. So I think a few people say it looks like white gold, kind of has a platinumy feeling to it, and it is heavy. It's dense. I had the 355th anniversary watches. I had them into review, and those just the one with the rubber strap, it felt like it was way above the stainless steel version of so the SPB 149 is the steel version, or the budget version, and the SLA 037, which was the one with ever brilliant steel, was the high end version with the high beat movement, and that was a tank. That was really heavy. So it all had like this white gold kind of feeling to it when you're holding the watch, and it's an interesting steel. I don't think it's worth the price premium. It's a huge price premium. I know part of that is probably Seiko just pushing up market, but it's an interesting material. I think I would have passed on it just to have 316L for a more reasonable price, but interesting innovation. Yeah. All right, so let's move on. What would you guys like to do? Do you guys want to discuss another topic, or would you guys want to talk about some of the newer releases on Grand Seiko?
I think just to add before we finish off the Seamaster Rolex Submariner debate, I think the
Yeah.
three things I just wanted to add was the lume. I think the lume of the Rolex, because this is a dive watch, right? So I think the lume of the Rolex is probably much better than that of the Seamaster. I think the Seiko Lumibright is probably the best lume I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we're just talking Seiko, even though the material probably is better with Omega, the Rolex bracelet and the clasp is much
Yeah.
better than
Yes.
and with the micro adjustment, and it's just so much well finished. I don't know why the new Seamasters are not tapered. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
just one band of steel.
Mhm.
I don't like that. I think that they should have tapered it. I think the new Speedmaster has a little tapering. I'm hoping that that goes well. And I think Omega just released one with a quick release. That might be a game changer for Omega. And the
Mhm.
third thing is the bezel. The bezel action of the Rolex Submariner is
Yeah.
unmatched. Probably Blancpain probably is the only competitor to a dive bezel. The Seamaster has the scalloped edges, and it's really you have to press on it and turn it. So those three would probably lean towards Rolex
Yeah.
heavily. So
Yeah.
that kind of might sway your decision. Um, Again, availability of the watch.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Bobby. It was kind of an abrupt ending, but what I meant to say as well was that we're kind of chatting about this, and it's kind of all in good fun, but in the end, it is such a subjective decision. There is no one can say my watch is better than your watch objectively. It's just impossible. Which is why when someone tells you your watch is garbage, you can just laugh at them because it really isn't.
Has
Right?
anyone ever actually told you that?
Only in YouTube comments, but
And
not in real life.
these are hypothetical questions that we enthusiasts put to ourselves. Is this garbage or is not garbage?
Yeah. Well, people can be actually quite mean, and even if you don't make content, even if you're just commenting on a video, someone can just out of the blue turn up and say, you know what, your watch is garbage. I don't know why you're defending this, and yada yada yada. It's kind of a toxic. Just the world is kind of toxic in general.
Trolls are everywhere.
Yeah. But so yeah, there's no way to say that one person's watch is garbage over another. Um, you could in the end come to a conclusion to say, hey, your watch might not be the best, but say if we come all the way down to say Daniel Wellington MVMT, you can kind of quickly pick that watch apart. It's got plastic quartz movement, bad material, bad finishing, and it'll quickly fall by the wayside if you're comparing it to another watch of comparable price. But in the end, a person might make an educated decision to pick that watch. Maybe they got a screaming deal on it and picked it up for $20. Then hey, that's a great watch for that price. It's not garbage. Um, so in the end, it's a really subjective thing to say one watch is better than another. And in the end, we should just all respect one another and say my Tudor Royale is not a watch. That's the point of this. No, I'm just joking. But
So you
yeah.
could post an Instagram picture with pride.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I was gonna ask, do you guys want to look at the new Grand Seikos and Seikos, or I was gonna pick out one of Kevin's questions, watches that we were interested in but were disappointed when we got to see it in person. Do you guys want to tackle that, or do you guys want to take a look at these Grand Seikos?
I'm curious to see what your thoughts on the Grand Seikos are.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Let's blow through that real quick, and maybe we'll be able to get a good enough
Is
time.
always welcome on this channel.
Yeah. Grand Seiko is.
Oh wow, that's a beautiful advertisement.
Yes, and I think the victory here for all non-U.S. citizens is that this is available worldwide.
Well, it's funny because there was someone in our chat that said, "Hey, I talked to my AD in Canada, and they said the Four Seasons is coming to Canada." And I
Yeah.
said, "Well, I thought they discontinued, the spring, at least the spring one, the one that Bobby has on." And he's like, "Well, they obviously aren't lying to me." So I'm like, "Well, what's the deal?" And it turns out that it's completely different.
Yeah.
Four Seasons, which is also looks really cool. So
Yeah. Yeah. These are all existing watches. I think very interesting that they put a high beat watch in this, high beat movement in this. So this is basically the base would be something like the SPGM 221. Um, the 39 millimeter GMT watch, dress watch with the 9S55 movement. So just the regular beat GMT movement, and they've upgraded it to a high beat, and thus upgraded the price quite significantly. Uh,
what
but
was the old
these are
price?
the SPGM 221 was $5,900 Canadian.
Okay.
That is quite a bit less in US. So I think around under 5 grand, I would say, maybe 5 grand. Um, so these watches are different to the existing Four Season collection, because these are now called the Four Seasons GMT collection, and they're really nice. So you've got two high beat GMTs, and you've got two spring drive GMTs, and there's a significant difference in aesthetics as well. So here we have the spring drive GMT, um, and you can see that the 24-hour scale is now moved in between the indices versus being on top of the indices here. So, and of course, there's the power reserve with the spring drive, which is unavoidable with these movements.
Does that
So,
mean
what
you
do you
don't
guys?
like it?
Oh,
You
I
don't
don't
like?
mind the power reserve. I know a lot
Oh,
of people
okay.
don't like it, but I like the power reserve. Um, Kevin just said that they need to work on the thickness. Definitely agreed. I saw the prototypes yesterday at the GS Boutique in New York City. Very beautiful watches. I like the summer version the best with the high beat.
Which is summer?
I think the summer is.
The blue one, I think.
Oh, probably.
This is the summer one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the summer version.
So is
Yeah,
there?
Kevin.
There's one more. I think there's. I saw black. I saw green. I saw blue.
Oh yeah, there's a white
Yeah,
one.
there's another one. Let me pull that up.
And Kevin S is saying too that it looks like the Four Seasons, the original US one, is not discontinued, because I think that spring is hard to find, but maybe it's just
Yeah.
popular right now.
Mm.
You know, I went to the Grand Seiko boutique here in Miami. I live in Miami, so and this was in December or November, and that was the spring was the last one there. I was lucky.
Oh wow.
So it still hasn't been discontinued as of December, I guess.
Okay.
Kevin's right from that aspect.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a limited production, and I believe it's US only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think of this winter model?
To me, this is the most boring one out of the
Not a fan.
four.
I would concur with Keith right there.
Yeah, I actually really don't like this speckled. They've done this in a few watches. I really don't like this one. It reminds me of popcorn ceilings in old houses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, now you spoiled the dial for me.
So I've never been a fan of these.
Yeah.
But I really like this one here.
Yes.
What's
That
this one?
that kind of looks like the same one I have, but instead of pink, it's black.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, exactly. It's really nice.
It's beautiful. I mean,
I would go with the spring, the green spring with the leaves and the.
what,
It almost looks like an Iwate dial.
I see.
Yeah, that's my pick as well.
Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, same.
there's something about forest green. I just love forest green.
I probably prefer a spring drive
Hmm.
if I could switch that out for that one, but
Yeah.
still, I'd take that green one.
I would take summer. I like that blue.
Yeah.
The waves.
So is this with the brand new high beat movement, or is
No,
just
not the brand
standard
new one.
high beat?
This is the existing one.
Mm.
So the kind of thick one, which is why the watches are thick.
Mm.
And Kyle mentioned that they are really thick, but I had the SPGM 221, which is the same, but just the way they finish the case, it just melts into your wrist. You really don't notice it. That said, it would be ideal if it was way thinner. So I'm not making excuses. It
A-
should be thinner.
And do you like that these are stainless steel versus the titanium?
Ah, I it would have been nice if they had a titanium option.
Mm,
I I don't know if there is.
I don't think so.
No.
Mm.
But I don't mind either way. I really like the titanium, the feel of what you have, Bobby. That the beautiful shunbun that you do have with the titanium. Oh, it just felt like a feather on your wrist.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm very impressed with that titanium.
It doesn't scratch as easily as other titaniums I've had. It's a beautiful. I shouldn't say beautiful, but it's just so far it's been scratch resistant.
Yeah,
As you know, like the sometimes Omega has some Omega titanium ones, and they scratch pretty easily.
yeah. My snowflake when I had it, that was one of the issues that I had with the snowflake was they scratched really easily.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm not sure why that might have been the case, but my snowflake looked like a real mess, and I took care of it. And this was when I really cared about scratches.
Mhm.
Eventually, that did help me get over scratches, the experience with the snowflake. Um, but when I did have it, I was not pleased with how badly scratched up it was. Like I put it, I did everything I could to not have it exposed to any kind of foreign material that might scratch it up. But
I do like my the 62 GS case too. It's a really
you're right,
nice
yeah,
um, taper, smaller, like smaller thickness. I know a lot of the chat were saying like thickness, and I think the Shunbun one has a very thinner case because of the case, the old 62 GS case.
yeah, and you make a really good point because the 62 GS case doesn't have a bezel, a
No.
traditional bezel. And that was the biggest problem for me with the snowflake. The bezel had lines all over it, just scratch lines, hair lines, and that really took the shine away, literally and figuratively, from the the snowflake. And that's what made me sell it eventually. But I can see how the 62 GS case. I really need one in my life. But that bezel-less amazing titanium. I just can't say anything enough good about the SBGA 413. It's really nice. um, let's go into the chat real quick. Where were we? Joyce and Math, good to see you. Yeah, the summer looks really nice. The wave dial is really nice. Kevin likes the black dial spring drive. Joyce and Math in Singapore. Black dial was also very nice. For some reason, the green looked kind of flat to me in person. It was not a dynamic dial. Oh, that's
Okay.
interesting. Be good to see them in person. I'm
Yeah,
really
that
looking.
would completely change my opinion if it was flat looking in
Mhm.
person.
Yeah, because it looked really dynamic in those pictures.
I had a question. Do you think that they're overdoing the seasons because there's like so many variations? I think the initial one was a 4.
Yeah,
Wasn't there one last year too, like 20? I forgot how many
I think it's
seasons.
just
I think there were two more that they added toward the end of the year.
Yeah,
oh,
and
were
then
there?
they're doing other seasons here. Like I wish they had like maybe could have changed it to like nature or something like that, so that it was like like different collections of different instead of saying seasons, and
Right.
then
Yeah.
people are gonna get a little confused of what seasons you're collecting. Is it a
Oh,
I agree. I feel like they should have made the seasons collection worldwide. If
Mhm.
they had done that, I think there wouldn't have been a need for them to go into this whole other um, seasons category. But as we stand right now, I'm really glad they did because now I get to see some of these really nice nature inspired dials. But yeah, I do see what you mean. If I was in the U.S., I'd be getting kind of tired at this point, seeing all these different
maybe I
variations.
get tired of it eventually, but I think if they came out with a new seasons collection, just 4 each year, you could look forward to those 4. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. I don't know.
Mhm.
or like the equinox or something like the day of spring starts, they release one for spring. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
that would really
That's a
like
good.
once
Yeah,
every
that's a
three
good idea.
months. That would be good
So
marketing.
these are these limited editions or they're
No,
not?
No,
Okay, that's good. That's
they're
good.
they're a special edition.
Okay.
So no, they're not limited in production, at least to my understanding.
Mm.
Yeah, which is nice. I think a lot of people are getting tired of the limited edition. The interesting thing here also is the fact that the price on this, the the spring drives are actually quite a bit cheaper than the high beats.
Wow.
Um,
That's good.
I think they're $800 cheaper for the spring drive, if
yeah.
I remember right.
So yeah, the spring drive slightly bigger, slightly thinner, very slightly thinner, and slightly cheaper. So the spring drives might be the ones to get.
And more accurate.
Yeah,
Right.
more accurate, new technology, amazing story. Um, I would pick the spring drive if it came with the green dial, but because the green dial is in the high beat, I would pick the high beat.
Would you take the new? Wasn't there the new white birch one? That new movement, the 9S A5.
Yeah.
Take that movement over the spring drive, though, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's insanely cool. I love that movement. The 9SA5. I like today I was sitting at my desk going, okay, this watch can go. I really don't need my um 44GS GMT Iwate dial because that'll just directly replace my Iwate dial, and I can sell this. I'll sell this, and I can have that white birch because it's sitting at my AD right now. I can just go and get it. Uh,
Yeah.
Did you
it's
see it in person?
no, I'm avoiding that. I know I'll make a decision that I'll regret.
So what
So,
are the ones that you were thinking are going to go?
uh, um, so the Tudor Oil, which
Oh,
Ooh,
wow. Okay.
it would hurt.
hyping it
But
up.
that wants to become your signature watch.
Yeah.
That's funny. Grand Seiko guy's signature watch. But yeah, so the Tudor Oil was gonna go. I was gonna sell the SBGX 259. Completely irrational. So SBGX 259, which is the quartz, the smaller quartz watch that I reviewed last week, and then I was gonna sell the SBGJ 201. So the white Iwate dialed 44GS case. That is one of my two keepers. So the SBGJ 201 and the SBGY 003, which is a manual wind spring drive.
Yeah.
I know I'm spitting a lot of numbers and letters, but so I wasn't gonna get rid of the SBGY. That's a no way I'm getting rid of that. But those other three watches I was gonna sell or trade toward the white birch, and go for the white birch. But I know I will horribly regret that.
Mm.
So I think because it's not a limited edition, I'm just gonna buckle down and wait. That way, I won't regret it. It will be worth it.
Why will you regret it? Because you'll miss those other watches, or
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's, I mean, the Iwate dialed 44GS case. I looked for so long at ADs to be able to get it, and
Mm.
my AD finally got one in. And it's not particularly hard to get. It's just they come out. It seems like they come out in batches, and it took a while for my AD to get an allocation of that SPGJ 201. Um, so it took a while to get, and I really like it. I really like the 44GS case, and I would definitely miss that. Even though the white birch has a cool case that's now called the Series 9 case. And I would absolutely, I'm sure I'd really like it, but I would miss the 44GS case.
well, according to Kevin S., the white birch really blows the other watches away in terms of looks and quality. So
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the price, though. I think they're upscaling a little bit. Like, isn't it like?
oh yeah,
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
10,000 US dollars, 11,900 Canadian.
Yeah.
So, yeah, really expensive. I think it's
No, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful watch.
worth it.
It's just like all the watches so far have been like in the 5 to 7-ish US dollar, and now with the new movement, now it goes up to another 2, which is because if it was
Yeah.
5-7, I would probably been with you.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, it wouldn't have been even a question. I'd probably be wearing it right now. But yeah, the thing though is that now because of that, like following Seiko suit, Grand Seiko is way up there. Like we just looked at the springs, sorry, not the spring, but the seasons GMTs. Those ones are now $6,000. Those used to be way under five. I think around the $5,000 mark, maybe less. Um, so I mean, yeah, it's kind of pushing it up there,
Mhm.
which is not nice, but you know, it's expected, right? Um,
And I believe it has a blue second hand too, right? It looks really nice.
yes, yeah. But my 44 GS has a blue giant arrow GMT hand. It's so much nicer.
Right.
I can't release that. There you go. Kevin got the price for us. Thanks, Kevin. 4,800 for the SBGM 221. So under 5,000. So Seiko's pushing up hard. Now, as a caveat, the 44, SBGM 221 didn't have the high beat movement in it. So you could expect a little bump in price just because of that, but up to $6,000, I don't think so.
I agree.
JC says the new Series 9 case is nice. I have the 003, but the GS case with the GMT is my favorite. Yeah. So that was the turmoil in my head this morning. I'm glad I fended it off. Because Keith and we were talking about this last week. I was going through the same thing. So every weekend now, when I have the free time to go to my AD, I have to recenter myself and say, no, I'm not going to go there and make a horrible decision.
You're lucky that wasn't it like an hour drive or something? You're lucky it's an hour drive and not a 10-minute drive.
Yeah, 40 minutes. Yeah,
oh, okay.
That's true. Well, guys, I think we should wrap it up for the night. We've hit 1 hour and 12 minutes. So, do you guys want to plug anything? Bobby, you have a great Instagram account.
It's not a great Instagram. I have a Watch Medicine.
Yeah, follow Bobby at Watch Medicine. Keith is still our friendly neighborhood average Joe, soon to be Instagram star.
Oh yeah, any day now.
Yeah, and follow our friend Sam here at Sands of Time. He has a great YouTube channel. Waiting on some new videos there, Sam.
Yeah, definitely. Production quality is going to be miles ahead now because I've got a whole setup. I've got the macro lens as well.
Oh, nice.
So the next review is actually going to be on the enamel dial. I'm going to look at it in the macro, the Seiko enamel. So.
Cool. Which one do you have again? The black one or the blue one?
I've got the blue one. I've got the blue moon. So this is the one.
Okay. Right.
But yeah.
Very nice. Looking forward to that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Take care, everyone. Stay safe out there.
See you guys. See you.
Adios.
Bye.